Cheers, Mama.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the podcast studio. It's been a bit. We have some new additions that we need to discuss real quick.
Yeah.
And a dispute because we were actually arguing before we got started here today over the room temperature. In fact, we have a thermometer.
Yeah, Jeremy's a vampire.
Right here in front of Melissa. What do you mean I'm a vampire?
You're like, it's perfectly comfortable and I don't know why you're cold. Well, gee, I don't know because the indoor temperature currently is 54 degrees.
Okay, let's talk about, it's 54. Did you say 54?
That's what I said.
54 degrees, confirmed. We have a wood stove here in the tiny home podcast studio, and I'm sitting more in front of it than you are. Plus,
it's 54 degrees. I'm cold.
I'm a warm-blooded creature. Even when we're in bed, you're always grabbing the covers, getting all bundled up. And I'm like, what's the problem? It's perfectly comfortable in here.
Maybe I'm a reptile.
I run much warmer than Melissa does, apparently. And we are learning this together here in the podcast studio.
Yeah. It'll be like 72. And I'm like, oh, it's so comfortable and warm in here. And you're just like, oh, dying, melting, sweat coming through your t-shirt. And people are like, oh my gosh, why is it so hot in there? I'm like, it's not.
There were people that had legitimate concerns about my health on the last episode of the podcast.
You were sweating profusely.
I began to sweat profusely through, like, just slowly. Throughout the episode, you see me start to glisten and then it starts coming through the t-shirt. I got really warm, even though it was only like 75 degrees in here.
You're like a cheesecloth when they're draining the cheese and you just start to see the spots as the whey seeps out.
This is riveting discussion.
I know.
The new addition that we have into the podcast studio is this beautiful Charlie Brown Christmas tree that we have with absolutely zero ornaments on it.
Isn't it lovely?
It is lovely.
I like that it only has like 4 pine cones and they're all at the top.
Where'd you buy this thing?
Amazon.
Good old Amazon. It's very festive. We have to get some Santa hats or something to be wearing in here for next week's episode, maybe.
Yeah, I like it. Christmas is coming and I love it. Is it officially time that it's okay to now celebrate Christmas?
I'll allow it.
All right.
I'll allow it. I think we're there.
Yeah. I ordered that 2 weeks ago. So
Very festive.
Thank you.
Anyway, what are we chatting about, Mama?
Well, gee, I don't know. What do you want to touch?
We're going to try not to get canceled here on this episode because last night together as a family, we took in well, I thought it was a great movie. It was actually hilarious. We're going to discuss it because it generated some interesting conversations between the two of us, and we've had some interesting conversations with the kids since then. It's a very new, very complicated world that we live in, and the movie that we are referring to is called
Lady Ballers.
Lady Ballers, and that is being put out. You can actually stream it through the Daily Wire, and the Daily Wire is a paid subscription app. They're kind of regarded as a more conservative, I guess, leaning app, but they have a bunch of great entertainment options on there, including this brand new movie. It's the #1 streaming movie in the United States. If you weren't aware, we do not work for the Daily Wire. We're not being paid by the Daily Wire. We just recently got our subscription after discussing it for a very long time, and it was specifically for this movie. And I'm glad that we watched it because it was very, very entertaining.
Yeah, it's their first movie, and they're going to be making more. They're doing a Snow White, which is going to be great with Brett Cooper, and I'm really think the kids will enjoy that. And they have a bunch of cartoons and everything. So I was really hesitant to join because I was like, oh, another subscription. We have like all the streaming platforms, and we never use any of them. And so we were pretty hesitant, but this movie came out. We wanted to see it. It looked funny. It was a #1 streaming movie in America. So I wanted to see what all the hubbub was about on Lady Ballers.
So touch upon it. Why is it that it generated such interesting conversation between the two of us? It's a comedic, very, it's supposed to be funny.
Right,
Unfortunately,
it is funny.
There are moments where it's like, okay, this actually isn't that funny because this is occurring here in the real world.
Right.
And there are real life ramifications for the type of activity that they are mocking and making fun of.
Yeah, and they're not making light of it. They're bringing attention to it in a comical way.
Very satirical way, yes.
So I will say that this is not necessarily child friendly. There's a lot of adult content. There's not adult language per se, a little bit of sexual language.
It just has its adult moments and situations. I'd slap like a PG-13 rating on it.
Yeah, I would say it's like Family Guy humor.
Yeah.
Like in that kind of category.
It's moments of adult humor, but again, this is kind of an adult, or it should be anyway, an adult topic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's per se any better than like, or any worse than like Dumb and Dumber or something like that kind of adult content.
Yeah.
Like
so what is the premise of the movie?
So the premise of the movie is that there is this coach that used to coach boys soccer, and then
Basketball.
he wants
High school basketball.
Yeah, basketball. We just watched it. So then he discovers through some roundabout way that of getting this guy that used to play for him back into it, and they want to win some money and everything. That if they go to enter as a male, but then like it was filled up, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to enter as a female or whatever?" So he enters as a female athlete and realizes that they can completely dominate, and they can not only dominate at basketball, but all the girl sports. And so then they get like the old team together, and they're all identifying as females just to win.
For the convenience of it.
Yeah.
Because they find this loophole and they realize that, all it requires is that we state openly that we are now females.
Right.
Simple as that.
Yep. And then they're able to compete and dominate and win everything. And then they are starting to realize as they go that they're shattering the dreams of these women athletes, these girl athletes. And so some of them feel bad, some of them don't care. But it's an entertaining movie. It is funny, but it's about a very serious topic that is plaguing our high schools, our middle schools, our colleges, and now our professional sports.
International sports. I mean, the International Olympic Committee has deemed that trans athletes can now compete in whatever gender, I guess it is that I self-identify as, which is causing some issues.
Yeah, and apparently, I didn't realize, but in the last Olympics, that already occurred with a powerlifting competition. There was already a biological male that competed in female powerlifting that, of course, shattered the record, won the gold, and so that was like a whole controversy. But now you've got countries saying, we're not going to compete. You have entire teams like the women's U.S. swimming team saying, we're not going to swim if Leah Thomas gets to try out.
Touch upon that. What is the history there for those that may be unfamiliar?
So the swimming one, I think most people are pretty familiar with the swimming one. So Leah Thomas was ranked 468 or 465 in the 400s, high 400s for men's
as a male swimmer. Yes, and this is at the college level, the NCAA level.
Yeah, so it wasn't really gonna compete at any kind of high level. For
mediocre at best, if you want to even call it that.
Yeah. So then, I don't know what the swimmer's name was before, but now it's Leah Thomas, enters as a female and wins the NCAA. I forgot what race it was.
I think it was so it's the NCAA championships. I believe it was the women's freestyle, 500 meters. And she went from being a very mediocre male swimmer to instantly being ranked as the top female swimmer. Number one ranking.
Yeah. And
in the finals, she ends up winning and beating out her female competitors.
Who are looking completely shattered on the podium because the second place winner should have won that national title, which is huge. I mean, you swim your whole life for that title, and then to have it taken away.
So this is the focus of the movie. They're basically pointing out that this is becoming an issue, specifically with athletics, to where, and again, we don't. It's our goal to make sure that we're not ruffling too many feathers here and even discussing this, but it's taking away opportunities and prohibiting these female athletes who, in very many instances, have devoted their entire lives to the sport that they love, and it's robbing them of victory, acknowledgement, celebration, and
opportunity, scholarships.
Opportunity, period. Yeah, an even bigger issue would be, in the case of college athletes.
High school athletes trying to get into college. So there have been several female athletes that missed out on full ride scholarships by one place because a biological male had entered the competition and taken one of those female athletic scholarships.
And it's all sports. It's not just swimming. You're talking wrestling, soccer, track and field.
Track and field's been huge because, I mean, there's just obvious advantages there. Guys are faster.
Depending on who you, I mean.
They're faster. So
they are. I'm in 100% agreement with you. The issue is that you have people that are unwilling to acknowledge that truth.
Well, you can't not acknowledge actual truth when they've done studies on it. So for running in general, like, it is what it is. So you can bury your head in the sand if you want. But they did this study. I don't remember what college it was that did it, but it's online. You can find it. They ran the time of the two fastest women in the 400
meters.
So it's the two fastest women. And then they took their time and they put it against male athletes. And these were professionals, college, and some of them were high schools, like high school students under the age of 18. 5,000 U.S. boys and men were faster, 5,000, than the fastest two women in the United States. So to say that men aren't faster, are those two women faster than you or than your average guy? Yeah.
Yes.
But are they faster than runners?
It's the expression that I've heard others utter before is that yes, of course, there are exceptions to this rule, and there are women who excel and can defeat many, many men in a number of athletic, quantifiable categories. However, you put them against their equal and they're going to get dominated every time. So you can take the strongest, fastest woman and they will be stronger than faster than most men. But big but, you can take the strongest, fastest men and they will be stronger and faster than all women. You will not find their equal.
No, you won't. You won't. They have.
I don't need a study to tell me that.
They have bigger bone density. They have higher muscle mass. They have lower fat. They have
higher levels of testosterone.
Yep. They have a higher lung capacity, and you can't reverse that with hormones or surgery. You can't reverse bone density. You can't reverse lung capacity. You can't reverse height after puberty. Like most of these athletes, a lot of these athletes did their transitions after puberty, after the age of 11, 12, 13 years old. That's all solidified at that point. You cannot reverse that. So I think the problem lies with the fact that we're denying basic biology for the sake of pandering to 1% of the population while ignoring the rights and needs and everything that women fought for 50% of the population. 50% of the population is female, and we have the right to compete in athletics against our counterparts and have a fair shot.
Title IX. Yeah, we're basically throwing it out the window.
Right. Well, now there was just this big White House hearing. It was this week or last week, and they are reforming Title IX, which Title IX is a Women's Protection Act for athletics. It was in the early 70s, 1972.
Enacted in the 70s.
Yeah,
correct.
so it's been in place for 51 years. It has, before Title IX, 7% of high school and college athletes were females because they couldn't compete. There weren't teams for them specifically. There wasn't money allocated. There
lack of funding, lack of opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
And then after Title IX, after the 70s, it skyrocketed. Now 41% of athletes in college and high school are females.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It's an awesome thing. Amazing athletes have come out of there. Women have been able to go to college on full ride scholarships because they earn those scholarships by getting up at 4:30 in the morning and running or swimming or whatever their sport is, being on the ice rink, being in the gym. And now to have all of that canceled out when they literally physically cannot compete is so wrong and so unfair. And I'm kind of like, where are you at, feminists? Like, where are the feminists?
Where are you at, everyone?
Everybody.
Why are we allowing this to happen? I think the overwhelming majority of folks, at least in our country, see through this and see it for what it is. And especially if you are the parents of a daughter that is involved in athletics, we have two daughters, we have two sons, and there was an instance and a circumstance back when Nevaeh was still playing youth soccer to where she was having to compete against a male counterpart competitor who was actually responsible for covering her. And it presented some serious issues.
It did.
And the reason I bring up, why are we all allowing for this to happen is that when we, as her parents, became concerned and expressed any level of frustration, we were essentially told to hush and to allow it to happen. And that was not a boy who was covering her and dominating her and pushing her to the ground. It was a female, even though that was clearly not the case. Yeah,
and Nevaeh played striker, and this was a biological boy on defense who towered over her by a foot, probably outweighed her by 50 pounds, if not more. And she literally could not move during the game. He just shoved her to the ground over and over and over again, bumped her out of bounds. She could not get around him.
Come on, Nevaeh.
It was not a fair. She was so frustrated. And when I started to get irate and completely, like, I go from like 0 to inappropriate pretty fast publicly.
You don't say.
So everyone started shushing me. And then when she tried to complain to her coach, like, what is going on? I'm being fouled and they're not even calling it. And she was told to shut up. Shut up and play. You can't say that. You can't have an opinion.
And this is the problem.
So when did we start telling women that they can't have an opinion? I thought that was the whole point of Title IX. I thought that was the whole point of feminism and equality, was that we got to have an opinion and we got to be safe and comfortable in athletics.
Yeah, 100%. So, when did that start? I don't know. 10, 15 years ago.
It's gotten progressively worse in the last couple of years.
It has. And I think the bigger issue is, again, like I said, why it is that you're being told not to speak up, not to stand up for your child. If at any other period of time, we're children of the 80s. If there was ever a circumstance where a male was, being physically aggressive with any female for any reason, it would be handled accordingly.
Right.
And that's no longer the case.
Well, we saw that with Fallon Fox. That was it MMA?
The MMA fighter, yes.
So Fallon Fox was the first transgender MMA fighter. As a male, he joined the military. He got married.
Served in the Navy.
He became a father.
Fathered a child.
So clearly saw himself as a male, marrying a female, breeding as a male,
Dude was
becoming
a
father.
Correct.
Decides at the age of 31 to become
a female
MMA fighter, and then proceeds to beat the bloody hell out of women on television. The very first fight that Fallon Fox had didn't even last 1 minute in the first round, shattered her skull. She got 7 stitches to the head, knocked her out, concussed, in the hospital. And then after shattering this woman's skull in the most manly voice, I mean, like, you can listen to it. It's like, did you like that?
Careful.
Like intimidating. But it was a form of intimidation, and said, all you girls better watch out.
He went out of his way to say all of you women better watch out. Yes, you're next.
Yep.
Which is crazy. This is what I'm saying. So had this happened in the past, people would have lost their minds. Yeah. But we now live in a time to where people like this are absolutely celebrated and glorified, in fact.
This person's a hero.
Yes.
This biological man, father, husband, who's now a female, shattered a woman's skull, threatened other females, all on television, as people applauded and booed. There were a lot of boos. But no one could really say anything.
And was still allowed to fight.
Yeah, went on to knock out 4 more females. Well, yeah. I think it was 5 knockouts.
Smaller promotion. I don't think the UFC would have allowed for anything like that. And the UFC is the the top end promotion when it comes to MMA. And they actually have a women's division, and rightfully so. You should make things as fair as you possibly can and allow for people to compete and put themselves to the test, their own skill set, right? It's how you determine where it is that you stand and where it is you need to improve. But when you are placing somebody at an automatic, massive disadvantage by having them go up against a male counterpart in a sport that specifically, encourages aggression and strength, and those are assets in the world of MMA. Well, but you're seeing it even outside of that now. I just showed you a clip of a female billiards player who made it to the championship round of a pool tournament, and after winning control of the table, willingly went up to the I don't know if they're referees in billiards, but she walked up to the ref and said, "I'm actually going to forfeit this match. I refuse to play against a male." And that's in something like pool, which is a very skilled sport that doesn't require that aggression or strength. And still, she felt that, I think she was more so going out of her way to just take a stand, and rightfully so. Good for her.
Well, I think that's what needs to happen.
I do think that's what needs to happen, and I think you're seeing more and more of that. You referenced the female swimmers. What's happening now with that?
Well, Riley Gaines kind of is the name of it. She's kind of led the charge. She was the first one that was really vocal about, this is ridiculous. I lost my title. We're losing our title.
And she was attacked for speaking up.
She was slaughtered in the media. And then she was embraced by others, so she's had kind of a platform of being embraced, and her message is getting out there, but she's also been very brutally attacked in the media. And so the women's swimming team is actually saying that if Leah Thomas tries out for the Olympics, you're going to have a 1-person team. We're not swimming with her. We're not.
It's good for them.
Yeah. So
that's a genuine act of bravery.
It's an act of
I know that Leah Thomas is the one that's being regarded as this hero to be celebrated, but for these women to bravely go against the narrative and all of these political hot button issues where it seems like, hey, how dare you speak up and speak your mind and actually speak truth and acknowledge truth and science and what is. That is a genuine act of bravery when you know that you're going to be catching a bunch of in the process.
Well, as a swimmer, you wake up at, probably 6 days a week, 4:30 in the morning to swim for hours before school. You swim after school. You go to practice. You're at swim meets. You devote your entire life to getting to the Olympic level of swimming. They swim every day. They are the best.
Yeah, I think that's
swimmers.
That's most sports. If you want to excel and perform at a very high level, that's what's required.
But why go to the Olympics when you know you can't win gold? That's the dream.
Yeah.
The dream is gold. And it's like, you might get silver unless another biological male enters, and then you might get bronze. Or what happens if there's 3 biological male swimmers that enter? Because they're seeing, shoot, we can win medals this way. We can be swimmers even if we're ranking 500 in men's swimming.
Right.
And so now you no longer have a biological woman even with a chance to win a medal.
There are more and more people speaking out. There are more and more female athletes, biological female athletes, who are saying, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to participate in whatever organization it is that's putting on an event, a sporting event. And I applaud them for it. Like I said, I completely view it as an act of bravery. Bethany Hamilton, you also said she's a professional surfer. She's the one that was actually attacked back in Hawaii, 15 years ago?
20 years ago, yeah.
Lost an arm in the process. She has overcome and persevered to an extent that is really hard to fathom. She's still out there competitively surfing. Obviously, she loves the sport, and now she has taken a stand because there are male surfers who are very easily just saying, hey, I am now a female. Just like that. Boom, snap of the finger. I'm a girl now, so I'm going to compete as a female against other females.
Well, one of the trans surfers competed for many years as a male surfer. And he was kind of like a known gay male surfer, and was winning as a male surfer and is now competing as a female surfer, and she refuses to surf against this athlete. So
yeah, and it's unfortunate that it takes people sacrificing these competitive opportunities for themselves. But I feel like unless
I know that's sad too that they have to do that.
It really is. It shouldn't.
But they're doing it for the next girls.
I get it. It's just unfortunate that they have to take this.
Yeah.
Make this sacrifice in the process. It should never have gotten to this extent.
Somebody else should stand up for them so that they can compete. And at some point, there's power in numbers. And this is not something that America disagrees with. 70% of Americans polled agree that biological males should not compete against biological females in sports.
And
be eligible for 70% of Americans don't agree on anything.
I think the majority of common sense folks can look at this, especially like I said, parents, people who are raising little girls can look at this and go, no, this is completely ass backwards. Sorry for lack of a better term, because it is, and I think it's going to require that all of us do what we can and speak up and speak out when we feel comfortable doing so. Right. I get that there are a lot of the way things are now in our world. There's a lot of repercussions to come with speaking up and going against the grain, and that's unfortunate. Even us with having this discussion here online, we're having to be very cautious with how it is that we address this issue and topic, because
I don't think you can really be that cautious with it, though. I think we're gonna catch flack for this one anyway. Just for saying what we truly believe.
And that's fine. It's not even a matter of belief, though. And again, I think this is my problem. You referred to like these scientific studies. It's not a matter of science. It is a matter of science. And they're trying to take things that are in fact are not scientific and slap a scientific label on it, saying, no, this is the science now. The science has evolved. The science has not evolved. This is a very common sense issue. If you were born as a biological male, you're going to have a number of advantages over time as you progress as your born gender over your female counterpart when it comes to anything athletic. I don't personally have an issue with you wanting to identify however it is that you want. More power to you. I'm very, very.
People have free will. Do whatever you want. God gives you free will. I'll give you free will too.
But this is a circumstance where now you are infringing upon somebody else's right to compete. You're preventing somebody else from having a very fair opportunity that they otherwise would be entitled to. And that's not okay. That's where I have to draw the line and say that we all need to do better in speaking up and advocating for these women.
But the problem now with them amending Title IX, like they literally may as well take Title IX and throw it in the fire. Yeah. It's garbage at this point.
Just open it up.
Because they're amending it to include non-binary so it's like, okay, wait a minute. Once we add that category, so now can an athlete just say, I'm a female in basketball?
Yeah.
But I'm a male at school? So,
I had to ask you what non-binary was because up until 10 minutes ago, I actually didn't know. I had heard the term, but I really didn't have a firm grasp of what it meant.
Yeah. So apparently, like you don't fit in either category. So then, how is that protected under Title IX?
I don't personally understand. You can call me naive in my lack of understanding when it comes to these terms, but it seems like there's so many now I can't keep track. I'm just speaking honestly for myself. I cannot keep up with all of these new terms and acronyms. It's
Well, and then there's gender fluid. So like what happens if you go between being male and female, and can you do that conveniently for sports and take advantage of scholarships and prize money? Because although you can say, oh no, there's no one that would do that. There are people that would do that. There's people that will milk the system.
If you're going to allow for that to be a thing, first of all, asinine. My own personal opinion. I'm sorry. So I can show up. If I'm LeBron James, I can show up to a WNBA game and say, hey, for the next 48 minutes while this game is going on, I'm a female. And I can go out there and score a gajillion points and win the MVP and make sure that all the best women are men, right? This has become an ongoing joke now with the way that society is set up. And it's true. It's true. There are a number of circumstances that you can point to now to go, hey, how come this slot and position that was dedicated to females historically is now going to a male because they're simply just saying, hey, I'm gender fluid or I'm non-binary. And so because of that, conveniently, I'm a woman and I'm going to dominate.
Yeah, it's getting kind of annoying having any scholarships. That's super annoying. And so the problem with it being changed at the federal level is any school now receiving federal funds. So we're talking public schools, we're talking public universities. If they do not grant these scholarships and these titles and these full open opportunities, access to the locker room, the bathrooms, everything like that to trans athletes, then they are no longer eligible for federal funds. So it all comes down to money and control, right? So now it's if you don't listen and obey, then you don't have any scholarships to give out. You no longer get federal scholarships. So now girls just can't earn athletic scholarships if there's trans athletes against them? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
I don't, for 50 some years, the feminist movement was big. It protected women. And it was a good thing to be like, no, women need equal rights. Women need equal treatment. We need opportunities. Yes. We need our own spaces where we're safe and we're not going to be heckled by men. And, there were all these things. That's why there was women's locker rooms and women's basketball. And
historically, that was a very liberal stance.
Yeah.
And now they're self-cannibalizing because there's this
now women don't matter anymore.
Yeah, there's this breakdown in logic to where we are saying that people who have lived their entire lives as biological men and now may have made the conscious decision to identify as a female have been female all along. Yeah. It makes no sense.
But so then I heard this one trans athlete arguing, well, you need to worry about what makes trans people feel comfortable. And it's like, okay, wait a minute though. There are entire teams of female athletes, like the swim team, that said, we feel uncomfortable with Leah Thomas stripping off Leah Thomas's one piece, revealing what is there in our showers, in our locker room, when we're getting dressed into our swimsuits. We feel uncomfortable. The whole team said, we feel uncomfortable and unsafe. And none of their feelings or needs were relevant or mattered. And not only that, how dare you as a woman express that you feel unsafe in front of this person with their wiener? Like, that's what it is, Like,
Schlong.
Yeah.
What else?
Purple-headed. No, okay.
Taking it too far. See?
So,
no.
What I'm saying is, like, how is it that we've gotten to a place in modern society where we're telling women that their feeling of safety, security, privacy, and opportunities don't matter? How are we telling women this?
Because we've established this hierarchy of needs and consideration. So your needs as a woman don't matter as much as that of a trans individual. And the same goes with, this victimhood hierarchy that we all seem to abide by via coercion. Because if you don't follow suit, if you don't follow the narrative, you run the risk of losing your job, of being cast aside by your peers, of being canceled. right? And so we all live in this fearful world to where nobody's comfortable speaking up, despite what it is that you may so passionately internally feel and think.
Well, and then people will say, okay, well then we should have unisex bathrooms in the public schools where trans students or males or females can use the unisex bathrooms.
Fine.
And then the girls' bathroom and the boys' bathroom. And then the trans students are like, no, we don't want to be segregated. That's not fair.
A couple of months ago, Melissa and I told you about the service that we've been using called Delete Me in an effort to hopefully get some of our personal information removed from the internet. Over the last 4 months, we've not only been impressed with what it is that they've managed to find, but what it is that they've also managed to remove.
So it turns out that there are data brokers out there and they will collect huge amounts of your personal identifiable information. They will use government sites, even your own social media. They will collect your social security number, your phone number, your addresses, even your family members. They then package it all up, license it, and sell it to other data brokers, corporations, or pretty much anyone that has an interest in your personal information.
Yeah, we signed up for the family plan. That way, all of our family members were protected under one plan. This can be particularly important when it comes to some of your elderly family members, as unfortunately, they are so oftentimes the target of these scammers.
To give Delete Me a try for yourself and those you care about, just click the link below or go to joindeleteme.com/GSL and use our code GSL to get 20% off all consumer plans.
We want to thank Delete Me not only for the services that they provide, but also for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Now let's get back to our conversation, right?
But then they say they don't feel safe using the boys' bathroom.
It's a dictatorship. That's not good enough.
But none of the girls feel safe having you.
Doesn't matter.
And like they're literally installing urinals now in the girls' bathrooms in public schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Tax dollars well spent.
If the girls don't feel safe and they feel like their privacy is now being taken away, why is nobody listening to them?
I don't know, but it's all of our faults. Like literally, it's the fact that we have allowed for this to occur. The fact that we've allowed for things to reach such a seemingly crazy extent falls on all of us.
And then here's a flip side of things. And this one I don't really know what to do with, but there are schools that are not allowing trans athletes to compete in the sport of their identified gender. So now there's the case of the wrestling. It was a biological female. She was a wrestler and she wrestled on the female team. Mm-hmm. She has decided to transition to he, and they are not allowing him to compete as a male because he was born a biological female. But since he is in the chemical transformation mode, has been taking testosterone, estrogen blockers, and steroids. Now, steroids and testosterone are performance-enhancing drugs. They are not tolerated in sports. And so none of the girls are allowed to take steroids or testosterone or estrogen blockers, but this biological female athlete is taking testosterone and steroids and is wiping the floor with the other girls.
Of course.
Wiping the floor because all of a sudden this biological female is way stronger.
Did she win a state title? And I think, wasn't that like down in Texas?
I don't know what state, but
I think it was Texas. And I think I saw at some point the moment that she won and people were booing. And to go back to that billiards example that I brought up earlier, the same thing happened when that biological female or just female,
it's just
female. Spoke up saying that she wasn't going to compete against her trans female. Am I getting this right? Her self-identifying female competitor. She walked out and started breaking down her cue. The crowd applauded her. Mm-hmm. They celebrated that decision, and it was so reassuring to see. This needs to. How do we move beyond this? I feel like this is I'm hoping.
Well, the White House isn't making it any easier by saying they're going to withdraw federal funds.
I get that, but it's just more of the same. I am hoping that there comes a point that we look back upon these last 10, 15 years with all of this and the way that it's progressed, and we are, as a whole, just kind of shake our heads off, like, what were we thinking or what were they thinking? Because it just does not make any rational sense. And I don't care what kind of flack I catch for making statements like that, because it's the truth.
Yeah, no, you're never going to convince me.
But how do we move on from this? How do we move past it? Or do we move past it?
I don't know. Or does it just continue to get even crazier? I think if enough people and enough sports teams and enough professional sports teams start standing up, I mean, do we have any biological male trans athletes that are playing in like the WNBA yet or anything?
Not to my knowledge. But
I don't think that's happening yet.
I'm not a WNBA fan.
But if it starts to happen, like at what point do the other teams start getting angry? And then if it just keeps taking over, do we no longer have female sports?
Probably not. I think it reaches a point where you just have to make everything open ended, right? Because it seems like we're reaching a point as a society where we are encouraging young people to just become these genderless amoebas, to where it's, you know, you can be, what is it, non-binary? What is the term where you basically do not identify with any gender? Anyway,
I don't know.
It's just so. To me, it's bizarre. Keep in mind, we live in a bubble here in North Idaho, and we've been removed from what I guess most
happens out here too, though.
Does it?
Yeah,
it's
in the high school and stuff. It does.
Not only does it happen, though, I feel like it's become encouraged in a weird way. You look at the numbers with, you know, people who are now taking part in this experiment of claiming to be a gender that they were not born as. It's out of control. It's reached a point, like when we were in high school, there may have been a kid. I went to a high school of about 12 or 1,300 kids, and I think we had maybe a couple of kids that were having, you know, questioning their own gender identity, if you want to even call it that. We had a couple kids who were questioning their sexuality, but it's reached a point to where now it's become glorified and celebrated to an extent that, like, kids want to take part in it. They feel like they're a part of a group. They feel like they're united with others. They feel like they're a part of something.
And it matters state by state too. If you look at the rates in California versus
Kansas,
Mississippi, Montana, Idaho,
take your pick.
The percentages are extremely high in California.
What do you think the reasoning for that is? I think it's cultural.
I think it's cultural,
100% cultural.
And just acceptance and what's trendy. I mean, kids will do oftentimes. There used to just be tomboys, you know, like I had
it was a thing.
A friend that was just a tomboy, and I thought for sure she kind of.
But it was always left alone. It was never a point of discussion or emphasis. It was never encouraged. It was never glorified. It was never celebrated in the same way. It is what it is. You are you. I am me.
There's masculine females, and there's feminine females, and there's feminine men, and there's masculine men.
To clarify, because I'm sure people will try to tear me apart for some of the things that I'm saying here. I'm not trying to deprive anybody of their humanity. I love all people, no matter what. I just think that it's an evil act to implant this idea in a very young, malleable mind of no, who are you really? When maybe they weren't having
thinking that way at all.
A single thought about it whatsoever, because it's very self-evident. Well, all you got to do is look down and know what you are.
It's been pretty confusing to young kids too. I mean, there was one little girl getting off the bus that was crying. She was in kindergarten. They had a gender discussion and how gender can be fluid and
in school.
Yeah. And
why? This is what I'm saying. Why?
Know. And how one day you can be a boy, and then the next day you wake up and you feel like maybe you're a girl, and that's okay. And then maybe then you can be a girl that day, and then you can switch back to a boy. So she came home and she was horrified and she was crying because she thought she might turn into a boy. She was so confused at the end of the conversation that she thought that her gender, without her knowledge or willingness or want, could change, and she could end up waking up and being a boy. And it scared the living hell out of her. They so confuse this little girl, and she's not the only child that's going to be confused as to what that means.
This isn't a conversation for the schools, and you will know this. I will not, because I refrain from even looking into these types of issues because I become so infuriated. Aren't there situations where on a legal basis, schools can actually withhold a child from their family, from their guardians, from their parents, if they express a desire to present or self-identify as a certain gender, and their guardians are actually depriving them from the opportunity to pursue that at a very young age, correct?
The state of California, they had, I think it was just this year, enacted a law that if a parent does not affirm a child's gender, that is considered child abuse and neglect, and the child can be removed from their care, put into foster care, and chemically or even surgically be sterilized without the parent's consent. And they will also lose custody of their child.
And people of California, is this what we're doing? I mean, seriously, is this what we're doing? We're all okay with this.
We're literally okay with the governor of California possibly being our next president.
With the thought or concept of a government withholding your child from you because you are doing your best as a parent to look after them and to provide them with very proper, straightforward guidance. That we're all okay with this. This is what we're doing now.
I mean, I don't even let our 8 and 11-year-old choose what they're going to have for breakfast. But, you know, like, kids don't know what they're going to know or feel or anything when they're 25. I mean, you look at Shiloh Pitt. It's Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's daughter. She is beautiful. Like, by the way, when Brad Pitt and Angelina have a kid, like, okay, this woman is beautiful. So as a child, she wanted to be like a boy and a tomboy and all this. She cut her hair into like a pixie. She wore a suit to the red carpet. And everyone was like, oh, their child's trans. Well, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt didn't do the whole, like, we're not doing estrogen blockers. We're not doing all that. Like, we're going to let her like grow up and stuff. And now she's in gowns and
as a female.
A female.
Yes.
So it's like, you have to be so careful because these things are non-reversible. If you take an 11-year-old girl and you give her a double mastectomy, you can't fix that.
Yeah.
If you chemically sterilize a child, you can't fix that. Like, how many lawsuits are there going to be from young children whose parents thought it was trendy for TikTok to say, I have a trans child and I've sterilized them at the age of 8 years old because the law allowed for this. And
those
now
videos
this
are
child,
horrifying. When I see those parents proudly presenting that on
people do it
any
with babies.
social media platform.
My baby's trans.
What are you talking
just
about?
Titled you,
what are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know people personally that have, it's two little boys and they refer to them as each one as they, and the little boys have shown no reason for that. And they're like, well, we're letting them choose their gender.
It sounds like you're assigning them a gender.
It sounds like you're assigning them just a lot of confusion because they just like boy toys and they dress like boys and they wrestle and they just like, it's like, why are you doing that?
Well, like I said, to my point, I think it's a very coordinated effort on people who in their own mind think that they're doing the right thing. But you're taking these very young, impressionable, malleable minds and you're implanting really awful, horrific ideas and concepts and introducing it to them and causing them to question their own basic biology. It's crazy.
Like, as they start aging
yeah,
and they hit
fine.
puberty,
Do whatever you want when
and
you're
you
older.
you can start to see it in a child, you know, like, and like, let them get older and let them make that decision as adults for themselves or something. But don't do that for like small children and everything. And to confuse like an entire class of children, to have a little girl crying, horrified, afraid that her gender is going to be fluid and change is so wrong and so unnecessary. Like, do you know that like 80% of college graduates think that Alaska floats in the ocean? It's like, if we don't even know that you can drive to Alaska as U.S. high school graduates, they can't name the first president. I mean, I just watched, you know, those videos where they go to the college and they ask them questions and it's supposed to be funny.
No, it's not funny.
They make me so mad. They asked like 30, I was like PragerU or something, and they asked like 30 college students at, I don't know, SPU or something, who attacked us on Pearl Harbor? What year?
Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
What day? What year?
What year was Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
And people are like, the 80s? Not a single person. And I was watching and Eli's all 1941. Like, my 8-year-old knows what year Pearl Harbor was. And these are college students. You not only graduated, you got into college, you're attending university, and you don't know the basic history.
This is why I don't watch this stuff. And I said a second ago that I can be somewhat ill-informed on certain issues. And it's because it infuriates me. Like the videos that you're talking about, we're absolutely wasting our time.
Teaching kids that they're going to wake up something different.
And it's not even a matter of individual accountability. That is a part of it because people spend so much time on just, you know, brainless nonsense, myself included. But as a whole, I feel like if you're going to an educational institution, that you should at the very least, public school, private school, I don't care what it is, you should be receiving the basics, especially when it comes to,
please, can we start there?
to historical events such as Pearl Harbor. But the fact that people don't know basic things, like the fact that, you know, Alaska is a part of the continental
and that it's
part
not
of North America.
Yeah, the fact that you have
crazy.
They're like, well, what country do you need to drive through to get to Alaska if you're driving? They're like, Italy. It was like, oh my God.
I know I'm not alone on this, but so oftentimes it leaves me feeling, and again, I think a big part of this is because we do live in such a isolated bubble here on our property or in our geographical region of North Idaho here. But it seems like it feels like, and I know this isn't the case, it feels like I am one of the few last sane people on earth and that the world is very quickly passing me by, but in a way that doesn't make sense.
I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of sane people.
Yeah,
they're just quiet and
exactly.
afraid.
Yes. We've all been, like I said before, we are all being coerced into silence, and I refuse to take part of that. I mean, I will voice my opinion without any reluctance, and it's not done with the intent of making anybody feel bad. Never is that the case. But when you're telling me that the science is evolving, and that the old science is the old science, when it comes to very basic concepts like a person's born gender, it just leaves me so absolutely flabbergasted and just baffled by what's occurring out there.
And you know what really grinds my gears?
Yeah, this should be like the Odin curmudgeon podcast. I swear, I feel like all we do on here now is come on here and rant about things that just are so incredibly frustrating. But it's because we have a vested interest here. We have young kids, and
we're worried about the future of our children and our grandchildren. Yeah, what does the world look like?
I have talks with them all the time about how difficult life probably is going to be for them with trying to raise their own children in the world at the rate that things that seem to be just kind of just falling apart in a way that doesn't make any real sense. I can't wrap my head around it. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is that's causing everything to seemingly go awry, but it's just...
Well, during the whole Me Too thing, I was worried about our boys. I thought you guys should never date, because if any girl ever says anything about you, this whole so I was always worried about my boys.
You're pro-rape.
And now
you're pro-rapist.
Yeah, sure,
how dare you?
Sure. And now I become worried about our girls, because now this is becoming a problem. And what really, really annoys me, I think the most annoying character to kind of come up during that whole, I didn't really know about Dylan Mulvaney during that whole Bud Light controversy. So I started kind of digging into this character and watching, and this is one where I'm like, is Dylan Mulvaney a female, or do you honestly identify as a female? Honestly, because you've got the male name and everything like that, and this only started maybe a year ago for this person.
How dare you say that that's a male name? How dare you?
Okay, anyway, this only started a little while ago, and it's this character, this Dylan character, is so insensitive and offensive towards women. Mm-hmm. So basically Dylan Mulvaney said, "I'm a girl," and this is this ridiculous voice, and I just said pigtails as I'm wearing pigtails, so that doesn't really work out. But I just didn't wash my hair today, so I had to do pigtails. So dressing all ridiculous, this stupid voice, and he's like, day 12 of being a female, and I bought tampons. And where am I gonna put those, Dylan? And this whole, if you watch this is this person's character. It's very annoying. I know it's annoying. I know.
I'm vaguely familiar with this one. So
yeah. And everything's yucky. And then Dylan will film just crying at the camera. Oh, Dave said I wasn't gonna cry today.
It's supposed to be a crying day. Why do I always feel like crying? Why do I always feel like crying? Don't do it, Dylan. Don't you dare. No!
This is a female characteristic.
How am I doing, ladies? I've had a breakdown. I've cried 6 times today.
Spot on impression.
Spot on. It's so offensive for women. So, okay, you decide after all these years of being a man that you're now a female. And when the day that you became a female, you've now lost control of your emotions. You're a complete idiot. You're an airhead. On the commercial, he's like, I don't know what March Madness is, but I think it has something to do with sports. Mm. We don't talk like that. That's not how women conduct themselves. We're not airheaded idiots that know nothing. So now you're a female and you're a complete bimbo?
Yeah.
What message does that give? So now you get to become a female and make fun of us?
Yeah, remember that hierarchy.
That's celebrated, and
remember that victimhood hierarchy and where it is that women fall when put up against a trans individual.
Right. So you're making fun of women. You're saying stuff is yucky, and you have zero. Yeah, you're just crying all the time because we just walk around crying all the time. Can't make this gas cup work.
I think I cry more than Melissa does, to be fair.
No, for sure you do. For sure. We don't just walk around with zero control of our emotions and not a thought in our head.
Yeah, no, of course not.
And everything that we talk, Dylan
it's incredibly
is
insulting.
sponsored by Tampax.
What?
Yeah. And yeah.
So that's a scene in the movie.
No,
to go back
that's
to
a
the
real
movie.
thing.
No, but they were making light of the fact that like, hey, I'm being sponsored by Nike to give a talk on women in sports, or oh, hey, I'm being celebrated. They're acknowledging me at the White House.
The Women's
like,
Summit, and you earned that, girl.
You earned that, girl.
And it was
go on,
48 hours after.
Yeah, but it's funny, but it's also sad because again, this is our reality. These things are literally happening.
Biological male that's been a female for less than a year going to the Women's Summit to represent the rights and thoughts and desires of women.
Because the world makes no
Why are we not asking women? You know, like biological women. Have we not earned that?
Caitlyn Jenner.
Women of the Year.
Woman of the Year, Melissa. Woman of the Year. All the best women are men. Sorry,
I
hate to break it to you, but in 2023, all the best women are men.
Who gave the Men of the Year title to Kim Kardashian?
What?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Kim Kardashian won Man of the Year, and I don't know if it was Forbes or it was one of those big magazines.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I think it was like kind of okay, if that's what we're going to do, then we're going to give the Man of the Year title to Kim Kardashian.
So it was done as a joke?
I don't know. She did the whole photo shoot and was Man of the Year. So I don't know. Maybe there's things about Kim Kardashian we don't know. Maybe I don't know. No. So yeah, Man of the Year is Kim Kardashian, and Woman of the Year is...
me. I'm your Woman of the Year as of right now.
You can't just deem yourself
Woman
you
of the Year. That's the way this works. That's how this goes. This is the way you do it.
That it's not fair to have the rights that women fought for so many years taken from us by biological men, scholarships taken from girls that worked really, really hard by biological men, and to also be made fun of by biological men because you're playing like a parody.
I'm with you.
Because
I completely agree.
Dylan Mulvaney is not taking this seriously. Dylan Mulvaney is not trying to exist in the world as a female.
He's making millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter making fun of women.
Yeah.
I think most women find that character pretty SNL skit like offensive.
They should. And all the modern day feminists, shame on you. You are not a feminist whatsoever. Where are all my old school feminists from the 60s and 70s that actually stood up for women's rights? I mean, I know some of them are still around and some of them are still speaking up and some of them are speaking out against this to their credit. Good for them.
I think most people are not okay with this. I think it
shouldn't be. It makes absolutely zero sense. And again, this is my own personal opinion. Roast me for it if you want. I really don't care. I'm not going to be somebody who does not speak truth, who labels things that are absolutely non-scientific as being science. It's a crazy world out there. As
a woman, I feel like I should have a voice in this. I find it offensive. I find it really sad. I find it to be a massive step back for women. And I'm a woman and I can say that. And I don't care who it offends.
You don't have to qualify your statements whatsoever. It's not like I can't speak on it because I'm a male. I'm the father of daughters and I have my own concerns. And the fact that, this is just, it's a deterioration of our society as a whole.
Well, I think it's funny that a lot of the toxic males, those fathers and those and those breadwinners and those defenders, those really yucky guys out there, they're going out there being manly and smelling like BO and cutting wood and stuff, those toxic masculine traits are the ones that are defending women right now. They're the ones that are standing up and going, no.
And it's their place to do so, despite the fact that it's the same society that's telling them that they are not to acknowledge their masculinity.
Yeah, I think
the same thing. Goes hand in hand.
It's important to protect everybody. If we want to protect groups, you have to protect everybody. If you want to hear the needs or the wants or the thoughts or the feelings of groups, you have to listen to everybody.
Yeah.
And when a big portion of the population is saying, this is not fair, wait a minute, you should listen. You shouldn't be told to shut up. Shut up, women.
Yeah, I'm not saying majority rules. It's not that the majority should always rule. It's just let's apply some common sense here. You're no more important than anybody else, and you and your own personal decision making, so be it. But you cannot infringe upon anybody else in the process. So the second that you go, hey, I'm a girl now, and you are depriving another biological female of an opportunity of a spot that is designated for them, that's no longer cool.
Yeah.
You want to identify as a female, go ahead and do it all you want. However, do not take an opportunity away from one of my girls.
Yeah.
In the process,
girls are getting hurt.
It's not okay.
They're actually getting hurt.
Yeah,
there was
literally.
a fetal hockey player that just got her teeth knocked out.
We just saw the volleyball player who had a ball spiked in her face by a biological male.
Ended up in the hospital.
Broke her face. Yeah, literally broke her face because this guy's out there spiking the ball, and he's towering over his female counterparts. Excuse me. She.
Yes. This trans athlete was 8 inches taller than the tallest girl on the team and had a vertical that was 20% higher. So when you're on the front in a volleyball team and you can jump 20% higher
and he was
than
like
everyone
a foot
else,
taller than everybody else.
Spiked the ball.
Sorry, again,
hit the girl in the second row and broke her face. Not only broke her nose, but it shoved it back into her face, and like the cheekbones were cracked. I mean, broke her face. A female player couldn't do that. And then there was a field hockey player that was just like a couple weeks ago. Field hockey player that actually identifies as a male, but there wasn't field hockey for men. So for boys. So according to the school policy, if there isn't a boys sport or a girls sport available, then this person could play. So it was a biological male, identifies as a male, playing girls field hockey. Who are this boy's parents? I want to play girls field hockey. No, Simon, you can't because you're a dude. Like,
whoa, easy now.
No,
Easy.
Sorry, you learn letdowns in school. That's part of growing up. The world's not fair. There's not field hockey for boys at your school. Maybe find a school that has field hockey for boys. So this was not a trans athlete. This was just a boy playing field hockey on the girls' team because apparently he felt entitled to do so. He hit the ball so hard that he knocked out the girl's teeth, knocked the teeth from her face. So she now has to go for surgical implants, and she's on the field screaming. Her teeth are dangling from her face, and the whole team's screaming. Everyone's crying, and they're all mad because they never wanted to play with this boy in the first place.
Yeah.
But they were forced to. If you want to play field hockey, then you have to play with the boy.
You're forgetting that hierarchy that I keep referencing.
Apparently girls don't matter anymore.
Protect women, right? Cheers.
Yeah, believe all women, protect all women, except in the case of...
Unless
physical harm, having your skull smashed in, things like that, then you better be quiet and just take it.
This is very easily to go on and on about for an hour plus. It's incredibly frustrating to witness. It's something that doesn't directly affect us as of yet, but I mean, you can say that
it absolutely does.
It does. In many ways, we're raising girls, and it affects all of us.
Our community, it affects our world.
I'm not in favor of it. Clearly,
it affects our daughters. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. Either we continue down this path and we live in a world full of everybody looking like the Hunger Games folks, genderless amoebas that are all dressed all fancy and crazy with 6-inch eyelashes.
The eyelashes are getting a little out of control.
Because we're moving that direction as well.
The eyelashes are getting really long. They're starting to look Hunger Games-ish. May the odds be ever in your favor.
I just don't get what's going on. I feel like we moved out into the middle of nowhere, and the world continued to progress in a certain direction. And so, when we get little glimpses of what's happening out there, it's just so mind-boggling. It really is, and it genuinely concerns me. It really does, clearly. My hope is that we eventually start to stand up and speak out and do what's right in protecting our women, our young women, our young girls. Mm-hmm. But I guess time will tell. We will see what happens. But in the meantime, hey, we can only do what it is that we're able to do, and we're going to speak our truth and acknowledge the truth, because there is only one truth.
Right. There isn't your truth or my truth and their truth. There's just the truth.
What is the word that we were talking about earlier today?
Tolerance.
Tolerance. The word tolerance, and how that's actually a despicable, disgusting word that's intended to be negative. And however, there are certain people who claim that your intolerance is something bad. that is negative.
Well, that's something taught. So since they're not teaching about the placement of Alaska and Hawaii in the public school, what they are teaching is tolerance. And I think it's funny because as children of the 80s, we were taught to not tolerate. Like when someone says, I tolerate it, tolerance is not a good word.
It has a negative connotation. It means there's nothing you can do. You're just dealing with it the best you can.
I tolerate Betty at work. Yeah. She annoys me, but I tolerate her at work because, you got
now it's something that's demanded. And if you're
tolerate
if you're intolerant of things that are intolerable, how dare you?
Yeah. No, you must tolerate all things.
no matter what.
And it's like, why are we teaching our young people to tolerate? Because that's a slippery slope.
It really is.
Because then what happens when there's a man who likes young girls, and do we need to tolerate
it.
his feelings? And as children, we're teaching our children to tolerate all things instead of teaching them to use discretion and critical thinking. But you can't judge anyone. When did judgment become a bad thing? You judge people all day long. Would you take your baby and be like, here, random person I don't know, will you watch my child? No, you make judgments on who is qualified to watch your child.
Yeah.
When you hire an employee, what the hell's the point of the interview? You ask questions so you can judge their responses. If you were like, this person said they don't really like being on time and they're not very productive and they don't play well with others, but I don't want to judge that. So I'm going to go ahead and hire that person. No, we judge the response. We ask the question, we judge the response. There is nothing wrong with judgment. If you don't make judgments every day in life, you will die.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a safety mechanism, right?
It's icy out. I'm going to make the judgment to not drive tonight.
Yeah, but you do it whether you want to or not. We all do it.
I'm walking down the road and I'm by myself as a woman with my purse in the city, and there's a shady character up above. I'm judging that person that they make me feel unsafe, and I'm going to switch to the other side of the road. Well, you can't judge that man. You should walk right by him confidently.
It's not very tolerant of you, Melissa.
I know. It's very judgy and non-tolerant. But it's important to teach children not to tolerate everything.
I agree.
And it's important to teach our children proper judgment.
It's control. If you can convince people that they are to tolerate everything, you can control them very, very easily.
Yep. You can't
judge. You can manipulate
and
the masses if you pressure them and make them feel bad for being judgmental or intolerant.
And there's people that do feel bad. They're like, and they'll literally, you can watch them physically
squirm.
Everything in me is saying this is bad, but I have to tolerate this, so I guess it's okay. No. You don't have to do that. Let's stop teaching children that they must tolerate all things, because that can become very dangerous. That can be dangerous for predators, and the camera just went out.
We're going to wrap this up regardless. Our cameras are dying. It is hot in here. Let's wind this down. It's 77. It's what I'm talking about. 77. I'm roasting. So we got this new Christmas tree. We just went off for an hour plus.
That was a super abrupt ending, because we could just go on and on. We're probably going to continue this inside.
We will. We're going to wrap this up. We'll wind this down. Cheers it up one more time.
Cheers.
It's a great movie. Go watch the movie.
Yeah, Lady Ballers. Don't watch it with young children if you're concerned about that kind of stuff. But it's funny. You'll get a good chuckle out of it. It's definitely a great conversation starter for high school.
It sparked great conversation for us and for our family. So, again, we're not working with Daily Wire or nothing like that. But check it out if you're interested. If you're curious about what led to this hour-long rant that we're having here. But we'll be back next week with another episode. As always, we greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and we'll see you then. You guys take care.